It was the morning I found 87 parking tickets in my mailbox that I realized my quiet life on the ranch was about to take a dark turn. I didn't own a car, let alone park anywhere other than my own land, and yet here they were, crumpled papers demanding payment from a place I had never even heard of. Willow Creek HOA. Max, I said to my dog, who sat at my feet, tilting his head as if sensing the brewing storm. Something isn't right. Moments later, another unwelcome visitor arrived, a man in a navy blue blazer and dark sunglasses. He strutted up my driveway like he owned the whole place, and without a hint of courtesy, he pinned another notice on my fence. I tore it down and read the words, "Notice of Lien." They were threatening to take my ranch over unpaid fine for a car I had never owned. I was a retired Marine, and living this isolated ranch life was a simple pleasure after 30 years of serving my country. How could this be happening? My heart raced as I recalled the last year, the hour I had met a young man named Brandon at the farmer's market. He seemed harmless then, just a fellow who needed help with a broken Mustang. But now, sitting on my porch and looking out at the open field that used to bring me peace, I felt an ominous shadow creeping closer. Determined to get answers, I climbed into my old Jeep and drove the winding dirt road toward Willow Creek, my thoughts swirling with confusion and anger. As I pulled into the town, the manicured lawns and picket fences stood in stark contrast to the chaos brewing in my life. A too-perfect facade hiding something rotten beneath. After a fruitless visit to the HOA office, with no manager available and a persistent sense that something was off, I returned home. But the feeling didn't leave me. They were coming after my land and my life without a reason I could understand, and it was time to fight back. The next day, I went to see Charles, a friend and fellow veteran turned private investigator. When I filled him in on the mess, his expression hardened, and I could almost see gears turning in his mind. Someone's playing a game, Jack, and they've targeted you. By the time we stumbled on the truth, that Brandon was ahead of the very HOA trying to take my land, I was ready for war. But what happened next was something I could have never anticipated. I found myself standing face-to-face with Brandon in Willow Creek Park, the weight of evidence pressing down on me. He leaned in, smirking, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. "You signed the transfer papers, and this all goes away," he sneered. I felt the adrenaline rush as I fought to remain calm. I hadn't just come to confront him, I had come to trap him. And as Charles stepped out with confirmation that we had everything we needed, I knew this was only the beginning. What they didn't realize was that I was no ordinary rancher. I was Jack Turner, a Marine who had faced dangers in foreign lands. I wasn't about to let anyone bully me off my own property without a fight, and this time I was armed with truth and an army of my own making. "Tick-tock, Brandon," I retorted, resolve hardening in my chest. "You just messed with the wrong guy." In the blink of an eye, the dynamic shifted. The fight was no longer about parking tickets, and it was certainly not just about land. A dangerous game of cat and mouse was unfolding, each twist unraveling a deeper conspiracy that threatened everything I had built. As I stepped into the quagmire where greed met deception, one thing was clear. I was in for the fight of my life, and I wasn't going down without a fight. What they didn't realize was that I was no ordinary rancher. I was Jack Turner, a Marine who had faced dangers in foreign lands. I wasn't about to let anyone bully me off my own property without a fight, and this time I was armed with truth and an army of my own making. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as I sat across from Brandon at Willow Creek Park, the air thick with tension. I could feel Charles' presence just out of sight, ready to set our plan in motion. I had been playing nice, but deep down, the anger was roaring like a wildfire. "You think you can just swindle me and walk away?" I asked, my voice steady but low. Brandon smirked, adjusting his expensive sunglasses. "It's already too late for you. I have everything I need. Trust me, you don't want to fight anymore." What he didn't know was that I had come prepared. I was done with polite conversations and threats too thinly veiled. "You don't know how badly I want to fight," I replied, leaning forward. "And you're going to regret ever crossing paths with me." The smirk faltered for the briefest moment, but he quickly recovered. "You're bluffing, old man. You think I'm scared of your empty threats." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just then, I caught movement in the corner of my vision. Charles shifted behind the trees, signaling that he was ready. I smiled, You're right. I'm just a guy fighting for his land. Nothing to be scared of unless you've got something to hide. Brandon's expression darkened, and I felt the heat of the moment crackling like electricity in the air. What are you talking about? Without answering, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a flash drive, placing it on the park bench between us. That's evidence, I said evenly. Everything you've done, everything you think I don't know. And it includes your little ruse with the HOA. His eyes widened as I dropped the bomb. What do you mean? You forged my signature on the deed. You tried to frame me for a crime I didn't commit. And I've got proof. You're going down. His confidence shattered like glass. You think you can just walk away and take me down with you? You have no idea who you're dealing with. With that, he lunged for the drive, but I was faster. I snatched it up just before he could grab it. Oh, but I'm about to find out just how deep your little rabbit hole goes. And I'm not going to be the one who ends up losing. Suddenly, he jerked back, his smirk returning once more, but now it felt warped, sinister. You think this is a game? You don't know what I'm capable of. You don't know what's coming for you. Before I could respond, I caught a glimpse of a figure at the edge of the park. My heart raced. Was this another part of Brandon's twisted game? A second goon, perhaps? In one swift motion, I turned to scan the surroundings. I saw a shadow slipping behind a tree, only to vanish entirely. Panic prickled at the back of my mind, but I couldn't let it show. I'm done playing your games, I declared. It's time we brought this to an end. Brandon took a step back, his bravado faltering. This isn't over. Turner, you have no idea what you stirred up. Oh, but I was beginning to understand. As he stormed away, my mind raced with possibilities. This wasn't just about the land anymore. I was wading into something far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. With a firm resolve, I headed back toward my Jeep, Charles right behind me. Did he take the bait? Charles asked, urgency in his voice. More than I hoped, but is not out yet. We hopped in, and I started the engine, feeling the rumble beneath me. What's next? I asked, quickening my breath. We need to dig deeper and gather everything we can. I think it's Cade, Jack, and that makes him dangerous. We'll set a trap, but we need to move fast, if it's as connected as he seems. I cut him off, gripping the steering wheel tight. I won't back down, not after what he's done. As a familiar landscape blurred by, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching us. The earth seemed to vibrate with tension, whispers of something much larger lurking just below the surface. When I pulled back into my ranch, however, the stillness told another story. Smoke curled around the edges of the barn, the newly rebuilt one standing strong against the horizon. I parked the Jeep and stepped outside, feeling a sudden chill run down my spine. In the distance, near the edge of the woods, there was movement, a flash of black. My heart raced. Had they come for me already? Charles, get back! I shouted, fear fueling my urgency. But it was too late. The moment I stepped forward, everything erupted. A shot rang out, breaking through the quiet air like thunder. I hit the ground instinctively, rolling behind the nearest fence post for cover. What the hell? Charles yelled, reaching for his phone, but I waved him off. We had bigger problems now than any paperwork or forged deeds. Stay low. I instructed, scanning the area. I could see a figure retreating into the woods, the flash of their weapon glinting in the fading light. This was no longer about land. It was war. The fight had come to my doorstep, and they had clearly underestimated just how far I was willing to go to defend what was mine. As I crouched low, heart pounding in my ears, I knew one thing for certain. The gloves had come off, and the real battle was just beginning. The fight had come to my doorstep, and they had clearly underestimated just how far I was willing to go to defend what was mine. As I crouched low, heart pounding in my ears, everything I cared about was at stake. Charles, get to the Jeep. I shouted, adrenaline surging through me like electricity. Are you crazy? We can't just leave, he replied, peering around the fence post, instincts kicking in as he scanned for danger. They are not just aiming to scare us. They want to fight. Trust me, I'll hold them off. I spat out, forcing my breathing to calm. The figure in the woods was just a silhouette now, but I could feel their presence, a predator watching, poised to strike. "Jack, you can't face this alone," Charles protested, but I had already made up my mind. "Just go. Get back to town and find the sheriff." I shouted, voice laced with desperation. I felt the weight of the world resting on my shoulders, and I couldn't let them win. Not after everything we'd uncovered. With one last reluctant nod, Charles ducked toward the jeep. I focused my attention back to the woods, gripping my rifle tight, heart hammering in my chest. I needed to be steady. I needed to be smart. Silence engulfed the ranch as I waited, muscles tense under the pressure. I strained to hear any sound, any rustle that would tell me where they were. Then, through the quiet, I caught a soft crunch of leaves. Someone was moving closer. I peered over the fence, squinting into the shadows. Every nerve in my body told me they were coming. Suddenly, a shape stepped into the dim light. A young man, eyes wild, face half hidden in a mask. My blood ran cold. It was the same kid from the HOA office, the one who had been watching me. "Stop right there," I shouted, leveling my rifle, adrenaline flooding my system. He froze, hands raised, panic flashing across his face. I didn't mean to," he stammered, fear spilling out at him. "They made me do it. I don't want any trouble." "Who?" I demanded, adrenaline making my voice sharper, more commanding. "Who sent you?" "I can't say. Please. They'll kill me if they find out." He glanced back toward the woods as if expecting someone to appear. "Who's, eh? Tell me." I pressed, taking a cautious step forward, still keeping my weapon trained on him. "That guy, Brandon, is not who you think he is. He's just a pawn in something bigger. They're already coming for you." A rush of confusion washed over me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my grip on the rifle wavering, caught between anger and intrigue. "I don't know exactly. Just last night, I overheard the others. They said it was time to handle you, and they wanted to teach you a lesson. When I got this order, I was terrified." He was shaking now, eyes darting back toward the trees. "Why should I believe you?" I shot back, the urgency in my voice echoing through the quiet night. Because I didn't want to hurt anyone. "They're dangerous," he pleaded, and for a brief moment, I saw fear in his eyes that mirrored my own. Still grappling with my instincts, I knew I had to make a decision. The kid looked terrified, but was this some kind of trick? If you're telling the truth, you need to get lost. Now. I needed to buy time and figure out my next move. He hesitated, glancing back toward the woods again, anxiety painted across his face. "I swear I'll leave. Just don't shoot, please." Before I could respond, the familiar roar of Charles' Jeep thundered from the driveway. The young man bolted, taking advantage of my distraction, sprinting into the darkness. "Jack!" Charles yelled, skidding to a stop beside me, eyes wide. "What happened?" "A kid from the HOA, the one who worked the front desk. He said they're coming for me. Brandon's just a pawn in a bigger game," I explained quickly, not wanting to lose momentum. "Did you get his name?" Charles asked, already scrambling to grab his phone. "Does it matter?" He ran into the woods. I replied, frustration bubbling up. But his words felt genuine. This goes deeper than we thought. Before another word was exchanged, I caught a glimpse of movement again, shadows darting through the trees like specters. "Let's get to high ground. They're still out there," I ordered, darting towards the barn's remains. We bolted across the yard together, hightailing it toward the old grain storage shed, my heart racing with every footstep. The shadows grew closer, and my mind raced, formulating my next steps. Just as we reached the shed, the night lit up with bright headlights. A truck barreled down my driveway, tires screeching as it fishtailed around the bend. "Get inside," I urged. We ducked inside the shed, hearts pounding, while I peered through a crack in the door. The truck slammed to a stop, and the rear doors swung open. I could just make out several figures, men dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured by hoods. "Go! Go! Grab that old man stuff," one of them shouted, a voice full of malice that made my blood run cold. The plan is in motion. We can't let him get in our way. With a surge of fury, I could feel the cold dread settle into my bones. They planned to finish what they started. Charles, do you have your phone? I whispered urgently. Yeah, but what? Call the sheriff. Now. We need backup before we can confront these guys. Just then, I heard the sound of metal scraping against the ground outside. My stomach dropped. Anything we said now could be heard, and this time I couldn't afford to hesitate. In that very moment, I knew I had to act. These men were not just after me, they were after everything I cared about. Taking a deep breath, I reached for the old crowbar resting against the wall. When I make a noise, we rush out and take them by surprise. I whispered. We shared a determined glance. Let's make it count, I said, gripping the crowbar tight. I pushed the shed door open just enough to slip through the gap, and in one motion, I swung the crowbar into the nearest figure. The crack of impact echoed in the night, and chaos erupted. Get back! Get back! One of the men shouted, scrambling for his weapon. Now! I yelled, and Charles charged in beside me, fists flying. Adrenaline coursed through us as we fought back against a group that had dared to threaten my home. Each punch and shove seemed to echo the fury I felt not just for the assault on my property, but for the very spirit of every veteran who had ever fought for their home. As chaos enveloped the yard, I caught a glimpse of the kid's face in the shadows, watching us from a distance, eyes wide with terror. And just like that, I made a decision that would forever change the course of this battle. Get out of here. Go warn the sheriff. I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. He hesitated, confusion clouding his features. But Now! I barked, and the urgency snapped him into action. He turned and ran, and I prayed he wouldn't look back. With fire igniting my veins, I focused on the fight at hand, knowing that for every moment I stood, I was protecting not only my land but everything I believed in. With shadows retreating and fists flying, I stood resolute, ready to face whatever storm was brewing ahead. With fire igniting my veins, I focused on the fight at hand, knowing that for every moment I stood, I was protecting not only my land but everything I believed in. Adrenaline surged as I swung the crowbar again, crushing into another figure who charged at me. Each strike felt like a release that echoed deep within. Fury, fear, and desperation all mixed into one. Jack! Watch out! Charles shouted, grappling with another intruder. I turned just in time to see a man wearing a mask lunging at my side. I twisted, bringing the crowbar down, but he sidestepped, knocking me to the ground. My heart raced in my chest, and for a split second, everything blurred around me. Fighting to regain my footing, I rolled to the side, dodging his next move while I struggled desperately to breathe. Charles roared, lunging toward the attacker, and together we wrestled him down. 2 down. I yelled, trying to fight back the surge of fear threatening to consume me. We can't let them regroup. But as I took a glance back toward the truck, I noticed 2 more figures emerging out of the shadows with weapons drawn. My heart dropped. They are not the only ones. I shouted, struggling to rise as Charles caught his breath. Then, without warning, the intruders in masks began to disperse, moving around the shed toward the front of the house, their eyes glinting with something dark and sinister. No! I shouted, instantly readjusting my focus. They are going for the barn. Jack, we need to regroup. Charles shouted, breathless, but I didn't have time to listen. Gripping the crowbar tightly, I sprinted after them, praying I wouldn't be too late. As I rounded the corner of the barn, the first thing I noticed was a flickering of flames dancing against the night sky. A fire had ignited. Panic surged in my chest as I saw one of the men pouring gasoline near where I had stored equipment. Stop! I shouted, racing forward. You won't get away with this. As I charged, one of them turned, eyes wild with malice. It's already over for you. Turner, he sneered, dropping the gas can and pulling a flickering match from his pocket. In that moment, everything fell into place. The knowledge that they wanted to destroy everything I had built, the fear for my home and the people close to me began to twist into sheer terror. Don't! I screamed, lunging forward, but it was too late. The man flicked the match, and fire sprung to life, dancing hungrily toward the barn's wooden beams. I felt heat wash over me, the blaze reflecting in my eyes as dread twisted my stomach. In a split second, my survival instincts kicked in. Without thinking, I lunged forward, grabbing a nearby shovel. With all my might, I swung it against the man's arm. He yelped in pain, dropping the match to the ground. The flame sputtered, somehow momentarily halted by the rush of dirt as I thrust the shovel into the base of the fire. "Get it under control," I shouted, adrenaline fueling my words. "We need to put it out now." Charles stormed in, eyes wide, and together we scrambled to find anything to help extinguish the blaze. We grabbed a hose, the water barely sprouting out in spurts from its frail old container. I pulled it tight. "Just keep the flames down," Charles yelled, focusing on the emerging fire. Meanwhile, I heard the familiar sound of footsteps behind me. The other intruders were closing in again. I turned just as a second masked figure rushed toward us. "Charles, behind you!" I shouted, swinging the shovel, the metal hitting him with a crack. He stumbled, turning to face me momentarily before collapsing. The flames danced dangerously close to the barn, flickering high against the night sky. I felt sweat bead across my forehead. This was a race against time. As Charles worked frantically with the hose, I noticed the shadows moving once more. 2 figures, in the distance, signaling to others out of sight. It was an ambush. More coming. I yelled, dread pooling in my stomach. "We need to finish this." Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the kid from the HOA peeking through the shadows, and for a moment, our eyes locked. His face was still streaked with fear, but there was something else in his expression, resolve. "I can help," he shouted, taking a step closer through the chaos. "Stay back," I shouted, but he continued to inch forward, determination digging deep into his expression. "I know where they are storing their guns." "What?" I blinked, momentarily losing focus on the fight. But there was no time as another intruder lunged forward. I ducked and swung, the shovel hitting its mark yet again. We were outnumbered, and I could sense the tide of this battle shifting, darkness creeping ever closer. The flames roared, and the air filled with the smell of smoke and burning wood. "Jack!" Charles' voice echoed, the hose spraying weakly now. "We can't hold them back much longer." Desperation surged. We need a distraction. I shouted, looking back to the barn engulfed in flames. "We'll set them ablaze instead." "What are you talking about?" Charles exclaimed, confusion etched across his face. "Just trust me," I yelled, sprinting toward the barn's entrance, where flames were licking at the edges, roaring with a life of their own. "I'll lure them away." "Jack, wait!" But it was too late. I plunged into the barn's depths, heart pounding against my ribs as chaos erupted behind me. The thick, acrid smoke stung my eyes, but in that moment, I felt clarity. I couldn't falter now. I had to be strong. I grabbed an old lantern, stuffing it with flammable materials, then lit it with a piece of fabric caught in flames. I didn't think twice. Hurling it back toward the entrance, I threw it precisely where the remaining masked figures were gathering. The explosion of fire caught their attention, and a moment of stunned silence blanketed the scene. A flash of light erupted, burning brilliantly in the night sky. "Now, Charles, now!" I shouted. With synchronized timing, both Charles and the kid stormed into the barn, pulling the hose with urgency. Together, we formed a line of defense. As we fought the flames surging around us, I could hear the intruders yelling in chaos outside, scrambling to save themselves from the unexpected inferno. And it was in that fiery moment that it struck me, their fear mirrored mine. They didn't want this fight either. As they stumbled and fell back, dropping their weapons, it was clear we had turned the tide. "Jack, we did it!" Charles exclaimed, hope igniting alongside the flame. But before we could exhale in relief, a destabilizing boom rocked the ground beneath us. The barn structure shuddered, beams creaking ominously. "Get out!" I yelled, urgency slicing through the air. With no time to lose, we bolted out of the barn just as a cascade of wood and debris collapsed behind us. The flames danced wildly, but with every exit, the heat and I spiraled upward in a catastrophic plume. As we stumbled back, breathing heavy and hearts racing, we turned to see the chaos unfolding around us. The remaining masked figures were retreating, panic etched in their eyes as they scrambled to escape. They hadn't expected this. But there, amidst the chaos, stood Brandon, those calculating eyes glinting in the firelight. He was watching us, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "You think this is over," he shouted, voice laced with venom. "You don't know what you've unleashed." Before I could react, he turned, sprinting for the woods as the flames consumed everything behind him, turning the landscape into a hellish nightmare. "We can't let him get away." I shouted, but reality washed over me like a wave of despair. "What are we going to do?" Charles breathed, watching the figures retreat into the night, unsure of our next move. "Call the sheriff. We need to report everything right now," I demanded. But as Charles pulled out his phone, I caught sight of the kid standing silently beside us, visibly shaken. "What is it?" I asked, motioning for him to come closer. I know where they'll go," he stammered, voice barely above a whisper, trembling with fear. "To the old factory by the edge of town. That's where they are running their operations." And just like that, the pieces clicked into place. This was bigger than just a land dispute. They were part of an underground scheme, something that reached further than any of us had imagined. "Then we have to go now," I said, fire still crackling behind us, the remnants of our fight burning brightly even in defeat. "No more running." As we turned toward the road, ready to charge into the unknown heading toward the factory, I couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was only beginning. The pieces had begun to align, and in that uncertainty, I felt the stirring of something deeper, a purpose. With every step into the night, as the embers of the past faded behind us, a new resolve ignited within. The truth was waiting, and I felt its pull as we raced against time toward our fate. "I won't back down," I declared, the fire inside me burning stronger than anything they had thrown my way. Little did I know, the biggest twist was yet to come, the moment I confront not just Brandon, but something much darker than either of us could imagine.